If one person had 48 hours in a day instead of 24, the first thing that needs to be established is what this actually means, because most intuitive interpretations quietly break the premise. The earth does not slow down. The sun does not hesitate. Clocks do not become confused. Everyone else still wakes up, works, eats, and sleeps according to a perfectly ordinary 24-hour cycle. The only difference is that one person experiences twice as much subjective time between each sunrise. When Monday begins, it begins for everyone at the same moment, and when Tuesday arrives, it arrives on schedule, even if this person feels like they have already lived through something closer to 2 Mondays. This is not time travel, not time control, and not enhanced speed. Their thoughts are not faster. Their movements are not quicker. They are not smarter by default. They simply remain awake while the world advances at its usual pace. This immediately raises the question of sleep, which is often treated as a flexible inconvenience but is in fact a biological requirement that does not negotiate. If this person still needs roughly 8 hours of sleep per cycle, then they now spend 40 hours awake instead of 16. That sounds impressive until it becomes clear when those extra hours occur. They do not appear as bonus daylight or extended evenings. They appear mostly at night, after businesses close, after messages stop arriving, after public transport slows, and after the rest of the population has collectively decided to be unconscious. So the extra time exists, but it exists in a state where most systems are inactive. Emails do not respond faster because you thought longer. Markets do not reopen because you are still awake. Meetings do not extend into the early morning just because you are available. In practical terms, the first result of having 48 hours in a day is not productivity but silence. At this point, it is useful to clarify what does and does not count as an advantage. You cannot use the extra time to attend future events, because they have not happened yet. You cannot perform 2 jobs simultaneously, because your body still occupies one location. You cannot bill for hours that do not exist on anyone else's calendar. You also cannot stack sleep differently to gain further benefits. Sleeping 16 hours and staying awake 32 does not create more usable overlap with society. It mostly creates confusion. So the only reliable use of the extra time is work that does not require immediate cooperation from other people, which turns out to be a narrower category than it sounds. Reading counts. Practicing skills counts. Writing counts. Thinking counts, even if it has a poor reputation. Anything that can be done alone, without permission, and without response, fits comfortably into the extra hours. Anything that depends on coordination does not. This pushes the person toward a specific pattern of development. Over years, they accumulate knowledge not because their brain is better, but because it has been exposed to material for longer. This does not show up as sudden brilliance. It shows up as fewer gaps. They know the background. They remember the edge cases. They recognize patterns that only become visible after long exposure. None of this violates plausibility, which is why it works. Eventually, this advantage leaks into professional life, but only in environments that reward finished output rather than visible effort. Jobs that require attendance, synchronized presence, or hourly justification offer almost no benefit at all. You cannot be twice as present. You can only be present or not. As a result, the person drifts toward roles where work can be delivered asynchronously, where results appear in the morning looking oddly complete. To outside observers, this looks like discipline, possibly obsession, occasionally something worse. No institution is equipped to conclude that the explanation is an expanded subjective day, so it does not. Institutions, in general, react to patterns, not causes. Employers notice reliability, not chronology. Governments notice compliance, not internal experience. Legal systems notice outcomes. None of them are designed to care how long someone thought before acting. So, while the person may gain trust and responsibility, the systems themselves do not change. Labor laws remain the same. Deadlines remain the same. Calendars remain aggressively unmoved. The person adapts to the system, not the other way around. Over time, a strange secondary effect appears. Because the person is rarely rushed, mistakes become harder to excuse. When you know you had time, poor decisions feel less forgivable. This gradually raises internal standards. Decisions become slower, more careful, and more conservative. Wealth, if it accumulates, does so quietly through avoided errors rather than bold moves. The person does not outpace the market, they trip less often. This is not dramatic, which is precisely why it works over decades. Socially, things become more complicated. Relationships are built on shared time, not just shared events, and this person lives entire additional stretches of experience that no one else participates in. Even if they spend the same visible hours with friends and family, their internal timeline moves faster. After 10 calendar years, they have lived something closer to 20 years of subjective memory. This does not make them wiser in a cinematic sense, but it does change pacing. Urgency feels artificial. Crises feel slower than advertised. Other people's impatience becomes difficult to share, even when it is understandable. None of this is dramatic enough to explain out loud without sounding insufferable, so most of it remains unspoken. At the level of government, infrastructure, and large systems, almost nothing happens. One person having more time does not speed up bureaucracies that are constrained by trust, votes, budgets, and coordination. Policies do not pass faster because someone considered them longer. Committees do not accelerate because an argument is perfectly constructed. The person can simulate outcomes endlessly, but implementation still waits on processes that run at 24-hour speed and are surprisingly proud of it. There are, of course, edge cases. The person could try to work continuously at night and sleep during the day to maximize overlap, which mostly results in exhaustion and social inconvenience. They could attempt extreme optimization strategies that look clever on paper and unpleasant in reality. None of these scale. Like spinning to slow the Earth, they technically do something and practically nothing. In the long run, the world does not notice anything unusual, because nothing unusual is visible. What changes is not history but texture. The person lives a life that feels longer, quieter, and more deliberate, marked less by dramatic success than by the absence of preventable failure, and the unavoidable conclusion is that doubling time does not double power when the world itself refuses to hurry.